Chapter 1. The Night Everything Changed. They say every love story has a turning point, a moment so sharp and final it splits your life into before and after. I used to think that was poetic nonsense. Now I know better. My name is Emily Cole, and this is the story of how I lost everything I thought I could trust: my marriage, my best friend, and the person I used to be. It happened on a Thursday, ordinary in every way, right up until the moment it wasn't. The kind of day you never think will matter until it does. I was 34, married for almost 9 years, living in a house that echoed with laughter and arguments, with secrets neither of us wanted to name. That evening, I came home early. The house was quiet, save for the distant hum of the washing machine and the soft rain tapping at the windows. I set my bag down, called out for Daniel, my husband, and waited. No answer. I walked through the hallway, past family photos where our smiles looked real, where we were still us. The bedroom door was half open. I heard voices, soft, intimate, not meant for me. One male, one female. A laugh, low and familiar. My heart stuttered. I pushed the door. The sight hit me like a punch. Daniel, sitting on the edge of the bed, and Olivia, my best friend since college, kneeling in front of him, her hand on his knee, faces too close, smiles too raw. They jerked apart when they saw me, but it was too late. The truth had been alive between them long before I'd walked in. For a moment, no one spoke. I stared at the two people I loved most in the world and realized they were strangers to me. I wanted to scream, to hit, to run. Instead, I just stood there frozen, while Olivia burst into tears and Daniel tried to speak, tried to make it make sense. But there was no sense left for me. Only the slow, searing rise of hate and jealousy, tangled together until I couldn't tell which was which. Only the knowledge that nothing would ever be the same again. I don't remember how I got out of the house that night. Only fragments remain. Olivia's voice, muffled and frantic, Daniel's footsteps behind me, the storm of rain on my face as I stumbled down the porch steps. It was as if my body belonged to someone else, moving by instinct, driven by some primal urge to escape. I drove aimlessly for hours, city lights blurring into streaks against my windshield. My mind replayed the scene over and over. Daniel's guilty eyes, Olivia's trembling hands. The years we'd spent together, the promises whispered in the dark, all of it unraveling in a matter of seconds. I ended up at a 24-hour diner on the edge of town, a place Daniel and I used to go when we were first dating. I ordered black coffee and stared at the rain-soaked parking lot, feeling nothing and everything at once. The ache in my chest grew sharper each minute, fed by 1,000 questions that had no answers. How long had it been going on? Did everyone else know before me? Was it something I did or didn't do? Why Olivia, of all people? I scrolled through old photos on my phone, searching for the moment when my life started to crack. There were no clues, only smiles and hugs and the illusion of happiness. I hated them for what they'd done, but most of all, I hated myself for not seeing it sooner. Around midnight, my phone buzzed with a message from Daniel. "Emily, please, come home. Let's talk. I'm sorry." I stared at the screen until the words blurred. I thought about answering, about going back and letting him explain, but the pain was too raw, my anger too alive. I turned off my phone and let the silence wrap around me. In that moment, hatred felt safer than love. At least, hatred was mine alone, fierce, bright, and unbreakable. The hours bled into morning, the rain easing to a dull drizzle. I was alone in a way I'd never been before, my heart a battlefield of memories and regret. Somewhere deep inside, I felt a new resolve take root. I wasn't going to let them decide how this story ended. I would choose what came next, even if it meant burning every bridge to the ground. Chapter 3. What Remains. The days that followed blurred together, each one heavy and thick, like wading through water with weights strapped to my chest. I called in sick at work, ignoring the pile of unread emails and the increasingly concerned voicemails from my boss. I wandered the house, numb and sleepless, haunted by memories that no longer belonged to me. Daniel texted every morning and every night. "Emily, I'm sorry. Please just talk to me." Sometimes I wanted to scream, to tell him exactly how it felt to be gutted from the inside out. Other times, I wanted nothing more than to crawl into his arms and pretend none of it had happened. That's the worst part about betrayal. It leaves you grasping for the very thing that broke you. Olivia tried to call once. Her name flashed on my screen, and my hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. I let it ring out, then blocked her number. I wasn't ready to hear her excuses, to listen to her guilt or her shame. I wanted her to feel the same emptiness I did. At night, I lay awake replaying every moment. Every look, every touch, every lie I'd believed without question. I started noticing things that had never seemed important before. The way Daniel had pulled away these past few months, the secret smiles between him and Olivia at parties, the sudden unexplained absences. In hindsight, the truth was everywhere. But hindsight is a cruel teacher. One afternoon, I stood in front of the mirror, barely recognizing the woman staring back at me. My eyes were rimmed red, my skin pale and drawn. The person I used to be, the hopeful, trusting, foolishly in love Emily, was gone. In her place stood someone angrier, harder, but maybe, finally, a little bit braver. I packed a suitcase with only the essentials and drove to my sister's apartment across town. When she opened the door and saw me, she pulled me into her arms and let me cry until there was nothing left. She whispered into my hair, "I'll help you get through this. You're not alone, Em." For the first time in days, I believed her. But I also knew that some things you have to do on your own. The journey out of betrayal is one you walk by yourself, step by painful step, into the unknown. Chapter 4. Fire and Ice. Living at my sister's place was both a refuge and a daily reminder of how much I'd lost. Her apartment was bright, cluttered, alive with the laughter of her 2 little boys and the scent of strong coffee every morning. I was grateful for the noise, the warmth, but inside, I felt frozen. I started running every morning, pounding the city sidewalks until my lungs burned and my muscles screamed. Anger was my fuel. I let it carry me through each mile, through every memory that threatened to drown me. When I stopped, heart racing, sweat cooling on my skin, I would look up at the sky, and realize I'd survived another hour. My phone became both a weapon and a curse. I scrolled through Daniel's social media, looking for signs of remorse, for cracks in his carefully curated facade. I checked Olivia's page too, half hoping to see her miserable, half fearing she wasn't. One afternoon, as rain lashed against the windows, I found myself drafting a message to Olivia. My hands shook as I typed, the words tumbling out faster than I could edit them. How could you? After everything, did you ever care about me at all? Or was I just someone to use? I hope you remember this when you're alone, when you look in the mirror and see what you've become. I hovered over send for a long time, then deleted the message. I wanted her to hurt, to feel the sting of betrayal as sharply as I did. But I knew it wouldn't change anything. Hatred and jealousy were iced in my veins, but revenge felt empty. My sister found me crying in the kitchen that night, rage and grief pouring out in equal measure. She didn't offer advice, just held me and let me fall apart. She said, "You'll heal. Not today. Maybe not for a long time. But you will. You'll be stronger because of it." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to let go of the pain, the need for payback, the weight of everything that had been taken from me. But all I could do was survive, one day at a time, while the fires of love, hate, and longing battled inside me. It was then I realized the opposite of love isn't hate. It's indifference. And I wasn't there yet. Not even close. Chapter 5. Shifting Ground. Time moved strangely after betrayal, sometimes glacial, sometimes dizzyingly fast. The first weeks at my sister's place were a fog of hurt and exhaustion, but gradually the pain softened around the edges. I stopped checking Daniel and Olivia's social media every day. I stopped hoping for an apology that would make everything right. Instead, I tried to build a new routine. I helped with my nephew's homework, cooked dinners with my sister, went for longer runs. I started seeing a therapist, something I'd always dismissed as unnecessary. The first session, I cried so hard I could barely speak. The therapist just listened, calm and gentle, letting my grief fill the room. "It's normal to feel everything at once," she said. "Hurt, anger, longing, even hope. Let yourself feel it. It's the only way through." I wrote long, unsent letters to Daniel and Olivia, pages filled with the questions, accusations, and confessions I couldn't say aloud. Sometimes I burned the letters after I finished them, watching the paper curl and blacken in the sink, as if the fire could consume my pain. One Friday night, Daniel showed up outside my sister's apartment. He looked older, defeated, holding a crumpled bouquet of lilies, my favorite flowers, or at least they used to be. "Emily," he began, voice raw, "I don't expect you to forgive me. I just needed to say I'm sorry. I ruined us. I ruined everything. You didn't deserve this." Hearing him broke something open inside me. There was a time I would have given anything to have him beg for forgiveness, to hear him admit he'd lost me. Now, all I felt was tired. "I know you're sorry," I said quietly, "but it doesn't change what you did. It doesn't change how alone I felt, how alone I still feel." He nodded, tears shining in his eyes. "I loved you, Em. I still do." I believed him, but love wasn't enough anymore, not after everything. As he left, I realized I hadn't screamed, hadn't pleaded for explanations or closure. I watched him go, the lilies abandoned on the step, and felt the ground shift beneath my feet. For the first time, I wondered if it was possible to move forward, not with anger, not with hate, but with something else, something quieter and stronger. I picked up the lilies, breathing in their fading scent, and let myself hope. Chapter 6. Letting Go. The lilies wilted on my nightstand for days, their petals falling one by one, marking the slow passage of time. I found myself thinking less about Daniel, less about the betrayal, and more about myself, who I had been before and who I might become. Olivia was the last ghost I hadn't faced. Her silence weighed on me heavier than Daniel's apologies. I wondered if she lay awake at night, haunted by guilt, or if she'd moved on, leaving the wreckage behind. Part of me craved confrontation, but a deeper part longed for closure. One Saturday morning, I saw her at the grocery store. She stood in the produce aisle, picking over avocados, her hair pulled back in a nervous knot. When she saw me, she froze, face pale, eyes wide. I could have turned away. I could have walked past, pretending we were strangers. Instead, I walked straight up to her. "Emily," she started, her voice trembling. I held up a hand, stopping her. "I don't want excuses, Liv. I just want you to know how much it hurt. You were my best friend. I trusted you with everything, and you broke that." Tears slid down her cheeks. "I am so sorry. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness." I took a shaky breath, searching her face for the friend I'd once loved like a sister. "You're right. You don't. But I need to let it go. For me. I can't keep carrying this pain around. I hope one day you find peace with what you did." She nodded, swallowing hard. "Thank you, Emily. I hope you find happiness again." I turned and walked away, leaving her in the fluorescent light, knowing that this was goodbye, not just to Olivia, but to the part of myself that needed her. I felt lighter, as if I'd set down a heavy load I'd been dragging for miles. Back at my sister's, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the balcony, watching the sun sink below the rooftops. For the first time in months, the ache in my chest wasn't all-consuming. I felt a strange, tentative peace, like the calm after a long, violent storm. I realized then that forgiveness wasn't about excusing what happened. It was about setting myself free from it, about reclaiming my life one small piece at a time. Chapter 7. Becoming Myself Again. Healing didn't happen all at once. There were days when grief still pressed down on me like a heavy blanket. Days when I woke from dreams of laughter and sunlight, only to remember everything I'd lost. But there were good days, too. Small pockets of hope that grew slowly, steadily, until I could almost believe I was whole again. I went back to work, not because I needed the distraction, but because I needed to remember what I was capable of outside the boundaries of love and heartbreak. My colleagues welcomed me back with gentle smiles and awkward kindness. No one asked questions. That was its own kind of mercy. I started cooking again, filling my sister's apartment with the scent of fresh bread and rosemary. I read novels late into the night, lost in other people's stories, letting my own heart rest. I even let my nephews drag me to the park on Saturday mornings, where I watched them race and tumble in the grass. Their laughter reminded me that joy was still possible. With every week that passed, the anger faded, leaving behind something quieter. Acceptance, maybe, or just a hard-earned peace. The wounds were still there, but they no longer bled at the slightest touch. One morning, I caught my reflection in the mirror and paused. My face was thinner, my eyes a little wiser, but I recognized myself again. Not the woman I'd been with Daniel or the friend I'd been to Olivia, but someone new, someone who had walked through fire and survived. A friend from work invited me to a small gathering at her apartment, a chance to be social, to try out my new wings. I almost said no, then stopped myself. I put on a dress I hadn't worn in years, painted on a bit of courage, and went. The laughter was unfamiliar, the faces mostly new. But I found myself smiling, joining conversations, even flirting with a kind-eyed stranger who asked about my favorite books. There was no spark, not yet, but there was the promise of possibility. As I walked home that night, cool air brushing my skin, I realized the ache in my chest had finally eased. Love and loss, hate and forgiveness, they were all threads in the tapestry of my life. I would never forget what had happened, but I was no longer defined by it. I was becoming myself again, stronger, braver, unafraid of the scars that proved I had lived and lost and lived again. Chapter 8. Ashes and Light. On the anniversary of the night everything changed, I returned to my old house one last time. It was up for sale now, the lawn overgrown, windows shuttered against the world. I walked through the empty rooms, fingers trailing along the faded walls, remembering laughter, arguments, whispered secrets in the dark. There was pain in every memory, but there was beauty too. I gathered a box of things left behind, a few photographs, a dog-eared book of poetry, a cracked ceramic mug from our honeymoon. Things that once meant everything, now relics of another life. That evening, I drove out to the river just outside town, a place Daniel and I had loved before time and betrayal wore us down. The air was cool and sweet, the sky streaked with the first colors of dusk. I sat on the bank, let the memories come and go, then pulled the photographs and the mug from the box. One by one, I let them slip into the water and watched them as the current carried them away. Not with bitterness, but with a gentle farewell. I whispered a blessing for the woman I'd been, the love I'd lost, and the lessons burned into my heart. As the sky deepened to indigo, I felt something left from my shoulders, a lightness I hadn't known in years. I stood and walked back to my car, each step a little surer than the last. The world hadn't changed, but I had. My story was no longer about betrayal or jealousy or pain. It was about survival, about learning to let go, about the hope that waits on the far side of heartbreak. I drove home with the windows down, wind in my hair, music playing low. The city lights shimmered on the horizon, and for the first time in a long time, I felt ready, not just to live, but to love again, someday, on my own terms. Because after everything, after love, hate, jealousy, betrayal, and suffering, what remained was me, stronger than the ashes, and reaching for the light.